it's very concerning at the moment for a lot of students and a lot of prospective students about how they're going to fund their university education, if at all. Obviously, the government has removed all of the maintenance grants and has replaced them all with loans, which means people are in more debt for longer. And they are planning to remove the cap on how much universities can charge for tuition. And if any of their past attempts are to be believed, they will probably succeed. So naturally, students in universities are very, very worried about this. And my question to you is, as mayor, what would you do to try and help students to ensure that even those from poorer backgrounds can still access higher education? We'll start with you, George.
Well, first of all, I'd use my direct line to government and do everything I could to prevent the change in the fee system that would enable universities to charge whatever they like. I think that is a sticking point. It may just be loans that you pay back as a tax in later life, but nevertheless, that is off-putting for many people who don't see that they will be able to afford that, even though it doesn't kick in until £21,000 income. So I'm deeply opposed to opening the level of grant to anything higher than currently exists. It's easy to say cut it. I would love to cut it back to 6,000 or so, but I would need to be able to tell you how I would pay for that.
Thank you. So yeah, like I said, I was well, I still do support the students. We occupied Core 24 for those 23 or 24 days over it. I don't think we should even pretend that we can do anything about tuition fees. Universities are businesses now. Students are cogs in a machine, pushed out to workplaces. We're basically pushed into. I mean, I'm quite lucky. I've managed to make myself self-employed, and I feel a lot more freedom from that. But essentially, what universities have become is a commodification. Turning students into just numbers and pushing them out. I remember Steve West. We had lots of discussions with him when the Vice Chancellor here, when we were here, and although he said he was on side, essentially it is a business, and they're not really that interested in what students think. Actually, they're more interested in making money off people, saddling people with debt. So you come out at age 21 if you start 18. Saddle with them debt. Now, what is it, £9,000? 80. So it's like 40 grand worth of debt even before you've even started getting a mortgage or getting married or anything else. And that's essentially what they want. They want to make more money off people while the rich get richer. And personally, I believe in free education. I still believe in that premise that actually it's not a means to, what is it? A means to an end? Is that right? It's not a means to an end. It's a gift in itself. I studied sociology, and although that hasn't enabled me to get a career, if you like, actually it's given me the insight into how the world in some parts operates, and it's put me in good stead really to selling tea on the street corner, which is absolutely fantastic, and I love it very much. But yeah, I believe in free education and that people should, whatever their background. I come from working class, and I'm lucky that I actually had a chance to go to university. Personally, if I was mayor, I'd be right on that picket line, right outside the university, fist in the air. Let's get to London. Let's go and challenge the Westminster elite and the elite in Bristol, who don't want people to have freedom of education.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I mean, you know as well as we do that there isn't much that locally can be done in terms of student fees and student loans. But what can be done at a local level is holding both the universities to account through their programmes that have been around for many years, as we know, called widening participation. I'm very interested to know what the university's doing about that and what results they have around that, and that ties in with those students on low incomes. The potential students, what we can do locally is reintroduce the education maintenance allowance for 16 to 19-year-olds. When I worked at the City of Bristol, we had that. It was a very short window, actually, education maintenance allowance, but what it did is it upped the attendance for those students, and it really gave them a reason to come into college. And actually, it's that age group that you need to prepare for university, because actually a lot of it is about fear. They don't understand it's the idea of getting into debt, as the fear of it, as much as the actual reality maybe when they get in there. You lot are all here, so clearly the fear that you may have experienced whilst you were doing your A-levels or whilst you were doing your BTECs didn't put you off coming. It's the ones that are being put off because they're coming from social or economically deprived backgrounds. There are other groups of young people that I am really disturbed about the idea that they're losing their maintenance, and those are care leavers, children that are looked after by the local authority. It used to be that they had their fees paid and they had maintenance grants. The idea that those young people are no longer in that position, and I do believe that that is something that the local council does have a responsibility for, and this local authority, the care leaving record is very poor. Ofsted are looking at this, and it's something that as a local mayor, it is something that you can focus on. So actually, what George Ferguson described as my direct line to government in order to lobby, any of the people sat up here is going to have what is described as my direct line. So actually, when the main parties come up, I think we want to hear what their policies are at a national level, because this is a national issue.
Okay, well, one of the things is when I get my most expensive student fees in Europe. If you go over to Germany, Germany doesn't charge tuition fees. And the reason why Germany doesn't charge tuition fees is because they recognise that investing in people like you is a common good for the entire country. That you, when you succeed, are going to bring much more to this country. You're an investment in the future. And the other problem with student fees is we're in a similar situation as we were before the financial crash, where we had a lot of debt being built up by financial companies, and then that got transferred over to the public sector when it all went haywire. At the moment, there's £100 billion worth of student debt. Public exposure to that is going to increase over the next 15 years to £500 billion. That's the next big financial problem for this country. What can we do locally? There are some small things that we can do. EMA is already mentioned, but what we also need to do is make sure that students are given opportunities to make savings wherever possible, in their housing, in transport. For instance, we can make sure that more students get their deposit back. Over 30% of students fail to reclaim their deposit. There are a list of things that we can do, but we also, in the end, need to change this government to get the big thing changed.
Yep. Thank you.
This question comes up at just about every university hustings I go to, and I can understand why. Personally, I cannot understand why any government would want to burden students with an enormous amount of debt just as they're stepping out of university to go into the world of work and business. Absolutely ridiculous. But we need to make one thing very, very clear, is that also there is no such thing as free education. It costs. Every single bit of education you've had has cost somebody. Now, what I thought I'd do is a little bit different way of looking at this, is because I anticipated the question. Over the last couple of weeks, when I've been going around the city, I've actually spoken to a few people that are taxpayers, because at the end of the day, it's their taxes and our taxes that pay for education. And I was quite surprised to find that just under 5% of the people I spoke to would be happy for either a larger percentage of their taxes or to even pay a little bit more in tax in order to make sure that university education was either, the fees were either reduced or eradicated altogether. Everybody else, nearly 95%, just over 95%, did not want that to happen. And I think looking at the people and speaking with them, for them, they felt there was bigger priorities. Even when I explained to them that this is the country's future, you are going to be the scientists, the mathematicians, the engineers that are going to build this country ongoing. But still, people did not want to pay more to help you. There is a big problem there. And if we really want to get university education fees down to an absolute minimum or nothing, then we need to get average everyday person in the street on your side, and to understand that you don't just go out every night of the week drinking, that you don't just go out messing about, that you are this country's future and we need to invest in it.
Chair, can I just make an appeal as well? And to do is, so there's a big backdrop to this whole election, okay? And it's beyond the specifics of the question you ask. It's what is real political change. There's a whole kind of narrative being created around what political parties are and are not, and what role they serve in politics. There's a whole narrative created around what the establishment is and who it is and how we get rid of it. And I think that the paper-thin version that's been peddled to Bristol needs to be tested, and maybe we can test it tonight and see if it has any credibility whatsoever. But let's get back to that, hopefully. It's about education. I think, along with transport, health, I think education is one of those things that just should not be left up to the free market. It's just too important, a public good. We need to be absolutely directive in terms of the way we want it to run. And I'm horrified that more and more education is being turned into a commodity. And that's not just a commodity in terms of you buy and sell it, as we do currently, but also in terms of your socioeconomic background. We know if you're poor, you're less likely to get access to good quality education. Poverty and deprivation is concentrated in some schools, affluence in others. We know that that sets up life chances and life trajectory. I'm also concerned about what happens in university. If you happen to work just to be able to eat, you're not spending time studying. The impact that has on the grades that come out the other end, the impact that has on career trajectory post-university. And I'm also concerned about the political implications of indebtedness of students. I got the last year of maintenance grant, but I had enough debt to make me scared. And the amount of debt I had meant that I didn't go off and join some of the political campaigns I wanted to go into. I went and started to work to try and pay off my debt. It robbed me of my political, my democratic voice and participation. What can we do in Bristol? We need a mayor that stands up for Bristol and is robust, maybe as robust as Boris Johnson, George, when they're standing up to central government. We haven't really had that. And I think that maybe what we can do is look at mobilising city resource, maybe a Bristol bursary. And I'm not advocating Boris Johnson here. I'm just saying I've heard more, a stronger opposition to central government from Boris than I have in Bristol. But maybe we can talk about mobilising our business, those businesses that are interested in social impact, about developing a Bristol bursary for some of the most disadvantaged students in the city. We all benefit from that.